Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Authors Meet 2019. Among us we have the renowned author, James L. Swanson, and I would kindly request him to come on stage. James L. Swanson has written Chasing Lincoln's Killer. Tell about his novel. Let's give our precious guest a grand welcome.
Thank you. Dear friends, thanks a lot for your warm-hearted welcome. I'm feeling excited to be here. I will share a brief summary of my novel, Chasing Lincoln's Killer, and request you to read the novel. John Wilkes Booth was a Confederate conspirator and actor. He disgraced as Abraham Lincoln freed slaves and gave them voting rights. His multiple attempts to kidnap the president but had failed. Since the Civil War was raging, a Union president in hostage would put tremendous pressure on the army and were likely to surrender. But he missed. So, then he and his henchmen devised a plan to assassinate President, Vice President and Secretary of State. It was informed that the President was visiting Ford's Theater and in that era the President's security wasn't strong. So, it was an easy target. However, the other two missions didn't carry out as planned. Booth immediately left Washington after killing Lincoln. He planned to go to South where he and his fellow buddies could help him. He now also had broken a leg. The good thing was when he was writing, he was ahead of the news, so people took him as an actor instead of an assassin. He continued to Samuel Mudd's house, then slept, but the news called up and manhunters were nearby. Then he traveled to Captain Cox's farm, who arranged his trip across the river to Virginia, Confederate territory. Then he continued and asked a fisherman to cross. By now the manhunters were only a day away from him and had caught all other suspects. By Secretary of State, the henchman, Powell, had pretended to be delivering medicine for the steward, who had been tremendously sick in his previous accident, but it had failed because a nurse of rank sergeant had thought that his little boy was killed when Fanny Sue Ord, his daughter, shouted murder. David Harold abandoned Powell for his fear. He later joined Booth, helping him navigate his way to the South. By the Vice President, Andrew Johnson, the henchman, Atzerodt, couldn't step into his house, so fearing of betraying Booth he just ran away. Booth had planned that if he assassinated all candidates for presidency, Confederate President Jefferson Davis would likely take over, but it didn't work. Immediately after Lincoln's death, Vice President Andrew Johnson became president and put a mighty 100,000 on his head and his companion Harold and Johnson in Canada, so now manhunters were desperate. The rest of conspirators had been caught and either were in prison or dead. Before crossing the river and reaching Virginia, they had been kept by Thomas Jones, who had fed them and had kept them secure. When they had set sail, Harold, Booth's buddy, had assumed that the campus was broken, which led to them to Bagshore in Maryland. He was with friends but close to pursuit. Later they started again, this time reaching Virginia. Later the manhunters crossed the river. Then with a fisherman, Booth crossed another river. He stayed in Garrett's farm until he was shot inside a blazing flame. Thanks for your patience listening. I will request you to read the novel and I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.